Hi, Dr. John. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Cool. So there's so much I want to talk to you about today, especially, your mission and vision of bridging the gap between Ayurveda and modern medicine. But I also am really curious about, so correct me if I'm wrong, you've written 6 books. Is that correct?
I think so. I haven't counted in a while. It might be 7. I'm not sure. I have to
Multiple
count them.
ebooks. You've
But
done so much.
there's
No, it's
yeah, a
awesome.
handful.
Yeah, that's so great. The one that I really want to chat with you about is well, 2 of them is the eating within the seasons, the 3-season diet, and then
Yeah.
the eat wheat, which I actually have right here. Your
Cool.
your eat wheat book,
Nice.
because I feel like you really hit the nail on the head about um, treating the gut versus eliminating food and eating
Yeah.
within the seasons. Can you explain a little bit about what that means to eat within the seasons?
Well, I wrote a book, The 3-Season Diet. I think it was in 2000. It was all about, how Ayurveda really does talk about eating with the seasons. Vata is, aggravated in the winter, and nature's response to that is to give us a harvest that antidotes Vata with nuts and seeds and higher protein fatty foods, right? So nature was always providing the antidote, and Ayurveda is the study of nature, really. And so became very obvious to me that the Vata reducing diet was a winter harvested diet, and a Kapha reducing diet in the spring was a spring balancing diet. It's a wet, muddy season in the spring. Nature provides leafy greens and root vegetables and dandelion roots and bitter roots that are very astringent to kind of sop up all the mucus in the springtime. And of course, in the summer when it's hot, nature gives us cooling fruits and vegetables as an anti-pitta diet. So it just became like super obvious. And in India, it isn't like here we have to know like what diet to eat because we have all the food from around the world all the time. But traditionally, it wasn't like that. No one said you should eat with the seasons because that's all you could do. There was no option. So somehow that message sort of got lost in the transition from Ayurveda coming to the West. And I was like, wait a minute, this is way simpler than this. You don't eat according to your body type. You eat according to what's in season. And then based on your constitution, you can overlay that information to tweak. If you're a really strong Pitta type and you're eating a bunch of hot, spicy food, alcohol, beer, cheese, wine in the summertime, working in the hot summer day, you're stacking all this heat in your body and you have all these Pitta-related inflammatory conditions, probably a good idea for you to overlay your body type on top of what nature is actually harvesting for you in the summer, which is cooling fruits and vegetables, not all this spicy stuff and fermented things, which are heating, but to realize that you should be eating seasonally because your constitution, you need to like take it to another level and really realize this is important for me to dial down the heat in the summer because I have a tendency to overdo it or stack that heat. So that's the seasonal idea. And I wrote, and then I read an article. It was in a book called The Forest Unseen, where this botanist took a square meter of the earth and he watched it and measured anything that crawled on his meter for an entire year and described it in scientific detail. And then he found that a deer came onto his little meter of earth. And he said, well, deers eat bark in the winter. So they came into his little meter of earth and ate some bark in the winter, but they ate leaves in the summer. And he said they have different microbes in their gut for eating bark in the winter and eating leaves in the summer. And if they ate bark in the summer, when they had the wrong microbes, they didn't have bark-eating microbes in the summer. They had leaf-eating microbes in the summer. And if they ate the bark in the summer, it would cause such a level of indigestion, it would potentially kill the deer. And I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me that when deer eat out of season, they could die? When we have no idea what's in season, we eat the same food 365 days a year. Usually it's super processed with no bugs, anything, no connection to the rhythms. And that's when I took my 3-season diet book and chopped it up into monthly sections and said, here's recipes and superfoods and menus and grocery lists for every month of the year. And we put it out for free for folks called the 3-Season Diet Challenge. Anybody can sign up for that. and they get it, and they can be like, oh wow, this is what we should be thinking about in, October, November, December, January. So you get to realize that this is what's really happening in nature. And the reason for that, which is why whole foods and organic foods, and for that matter, whole herbs, not extracts, that are organic are so important, because they have the microbiology on them. They're loaded with microbes, and they are the inoculators of our gut bacteria that change from one season to the next, So, and that's now hard science. Years ago, I found a study showing that the soil bugs change from season to season. I was like, well, if the soil bugs change from season to season, then the bugs on the foods should change from season to season. But now we have fact that the hunter-gatherer tribes, there's a big Stanford study came out and found that, in fact, their gut bugs change from season to season to season. So we have no doubt that's what's supposed to happen. But when you eat highly processed, sterile food, that ain't going to happen. And our microbiome becomes less and less diverse. And that becomes a problem, because it's those microbes that are seasonal that make the enzymes that help us digest the harder to digest foods, like wheat and dairy and nuts and seeds and grains and legumes and lectins and phytic acids and everything that everybody's saying, oh, lectins are now the new cause of all problems, wheat and dairy and nuts and seeds. And the problem with that is that if you don't feel good eating wheat, I get it, don't eat it. But don't think that you solve the problem by taking the wheat out of your diet. Wheat's been eaten for over 3 million years. They found wheat gluten in the teeth of ancient humans 3.5 million years ago. We have the genetics for eating wheat. In fact, 2 million years ago, we expressed a gene to make our own amylase, which is a wheat digesting enzyme. So you don't acquire an express gene to eat wheat if you weren't eating it, right? Or to digest starch if you weren't eating starch. So the paleo people who just eat meat and vegetables say grains are bad. No, there's no anthropological truth to that at all. But because grains are harder to digest because they have anti-nutrients on them, and because we've been eating highly processed foods that have been sprayed with pesticides, we have no microbes to make the enzyme to digest those foods. Then, and there's other reasons too, we can't digest those foods, so we blame it on the food. And I'm going, whoa, wait. Before you do that, because those anti-nutrients on the wheat and the dairy, the lectins, the phytic acids, the nuts, the seeds, the beans, all of those anti-nutrients are the stimulators for an immune system called gut immunity, which is 70% of our entire immune system. And if you take away those stimulants for a gut immunity, you don't have an immune system. And that was the thing that freaked me out. I was like, wait a minute, you guys don't understand what you're doing here. You're taking everything that's a little hard to digest out of your system, and you feel better temporarily. But the problem doesn't go away. It just becomes, I go from not being digesting wheat, now I can't digest what. Now we have best-selling books out saying it wasn't just wheat and dairy, which it was 10 years ago. Now it's lectins and beans and tomatoes and nightshades, and anything that's hard to digest is out. And I'm going like, that's a really dangerous road to hoe down the road, because we're going to end up with no immune system, with designer bugs and antibiotic resistant bugs coming down the pike, super bugs, and we don't have an immune system, we're in big trouble. So that's why I wrote Eat Wheat, because I'm like, I don't care if you eat wheat or not necessarily, but I'm telling you, that's not the solution. It's a symptomatic relief to take wheat out of your diet. We got to fix the real problem, get ourselves to eat, motivate ourselves to eat whole foods and learn how to digest our food and detoxify well again.
Yes, and I'm sure it made a lot of waves in the Eat Wheat book in the functional medicine world.
Well, I got a lot of not so good feedback. Everybody thought I was crazy, but you know what? Right after the book was released, 2 studies came out, Harvard studies, both 100,000 plus people over 30 years, both of them, 2 different studies. One showed that people eat the most wheat, the most gluten in their diet, have significantly less diabetes, which is like David Perlmutter, Grain Brain's whole shtick is that wheat causes diabetes. And I had 2 debates with him. The first one was pretty heated. And my mother said I won that debate, so pretty sure I did, debating the whole, grain brain thing. And the second debate, David Perlmutter actually, which was recently, he actually said, dialed down his intensity a lot and said that, yes, if you eat whole wheat in a natural way in season, there's really not a problem with it, which is crazy because he was like he created this whole crazy wheat being public enemy number one thing. And then, of course, now he's started to dial that back. He's still against wheat and grain in general, but he was really talking to the mainstream people who are eating, donuts and muffins and processed bread. And I'm going like, that's not wheat. That's long gone wheat. That's not what we're talking about here. And so the study showed that when people eat the most wheat compared to the people who eat the least wheat, the people who eat the most wheat had the least amount of diabetes. And another study, the people who ate the most wheat versus people who ate the least wheat had significantly less heart disease. So it's like, wow. And then studies came out again after the book came out, which I wish I would have got these in the book. But there was a study showing that when people eat the most wheat, they have 4 times less mercury in their blood than people who are gluten-free. So people who are gluten-free have 4 times more mercury in their blood. People who are gluten-free have significantly less killer T cells, a measure of immune strength, than people who eat wheat. And people who are gluten-free also have less good bacteria and more bad bacteria than people who eat wheat. And I'm going like, whoa, wait a minute. We're talking about more mercury, 4 times more mercury, less killer T cells, more bad bugs because you don't eat wheat. See, it's not the wheat so much, it's the anti-nutrients, the stimulation of an immune system that we're seeing in the science that says, hey, you know what? You don't stimulate an immune response, you're not going to have one in short order. And that's already beginning to happen. And we see that with people who are celiac, who don't eat those foods, their immune system and their nutritional efficiency goes dramatically down. And it's not just the wheat that they can't digest over time. They can't get their nutrition in many other ways. So it's a really big deal to really fix the cause. And that's what Ayurveda is all about, digestion.
Exactly, working on the gut. And so I know when I met you, I told you that I'm all about the microbiome. That's my specialty. And I have an idea why this is happening. So there is a specific bacteria called Faecalibacterium that needs the insoluble fibers from wheat. And it's the main producer of butyrate. And so it actually comprised, like you said in those studies, somewhere between 12 to 25% of the microbes in the gut that in healthy, diverse guts. And so the butyrate, you can speak to butyrate, that it's the most anti-inflammatory, compound that our body creates, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And butyrate comes from fiber. Also, Ayurvedically speaking, the highest source of butyrate on the planet in a food is ghee.
Yes. Yes.
Butter got its name from butyric acid. And when you take all the milk solids off the butter, you have concentrated, basically, butyric acid in ghee. And Ayurveda was all about, they figured out how to make ghee. And we use ghee in diet as cooking and dietary support. And there's literally bugs in your gut, like Clostridium butyricum and others, that literally make butyric acid in your gut. So doing things like fiber-rich foods like grains, which are the source of fiber to make butyrate, as well as ghee in your diet, which is a powerful. We use that in Ayurvedic cleanses to help repopulate the gut with butyrate or butyric acid. That's a hugely important piece of the puzzle, is to understand the value of butyric acid in the gut. And they figured out that it had to give you the highest food source on the planet of it, which I thought was pretty cool. And wheat, interesting, wheat means godhuma in Ayurveda, which means really to increase heightened awareness. So it actually clarifies the mind. People think, oh, I eat wheat and I get brain fog. The reason why you get brain fog, and here's an interesting understanding. I wrote an ebook. It's for free on the lymphatic system. People can download it, and it gives you all the science about the lymph. And in Ayurveda, the lymph, we call it rasa, is the very first system we treat. So it's really important to understand the lymph, and it all starts inside your intestinal tract. And if you don't digest or break down the wheat, or the dairy well, or the fats, the environmental pollutants, the mercury from the coal mine plumes, you don't break those down, those proteins and fats will be too big to get into your bloodstream. So they go into the garbage can, which is the collecting ducts of your lymphatic system. That's what the lymph's trying to do, is take out all the trash. It carries your immune system, and it delivers fats, broken down fats, to every cell of your body as energy. So if you eat wheat or fat and you can't digest them upstream in your digestion and break them down, and they're too big to get into your blood to give you energy and nutrition, they go to your lymph and they clog up your lymphatic system. So they give you a big bloated belly. You have lymphs in your brain that drain 3 pounds of chemicals and plaque out of your head every year while you sleep. So you get brain fog. You have skin-associated lymph here, so you get skin rashes. Everything that we talk about from wheat intolerance comes from an unbroken down gluten molecule that ended up congesting your lymphatic system. And that's the mechanism for all these gluten-related symptoms. But taking gluten out of the diet is just a temporary symptomatic relief, because you still aren't able to break down hard to digest proteins or fats. So you can take the gluten out, but there'll be other proteins that are going to end up clogging up your lymph, or other undigested fats clogging up your lymph. So we just got to, at some point, go back and fix the cause, which is a broken down upward coordination between stomach producing acid, liver producing bile, and pancreas producing digestive enzymes, along with your duodenal enzymes. All that's got to be coordinated. And if that ain't right, you're going to end up with lymphatic congestion, which is going to mimic all those symptoms that people call food intolerances or allergies or bloated or weight gain or cellulite. All that stuff, or brain fog, all that stuff comes from a broken down digestive system, which is like so easy to fix if we could just fix that and then go back to eating seasonal whole foods or seasonal wheat, which isn't every day of your life. I mean, their enzyme amylase, it increases in your body and mind in the fall when wheat's harvested. And then it circadianly dials back down in the summer and in summer months. And then it increases up in the fall again. So we're rhythmical creatures, and our enzymes, our digestive strength amps up and decreases based on what we had millions of years of evolution to support. And now we just eat everything in a super processed way whenever we want. And it's like, whoa, then we get back into rhythm and good things happen.
Yes, and I totally agree with you that Ayurveda knew all this, yeah, thousands of years ago. And, my understanding of Ayurveda, that almost 90% of their protocols, probably more, deal with vata and deal with gut issues, right? So it all comes back down to the gut. My curiosity is, I know you've been practicing Ayurveda for a long time. When did you have that aha moment where you knew that you could bridge the modern medicine with Ayurveda?
Well, I think there were many moments like that. I had a teacher when I was in chiropractic college who was an old school chiropractor who I used to talk on the phone from the Ayurvedic college, from the chiropractic college, and he would allow me to ask him all these questions. So he was sort of one of my original mentors, and he was really old, had old school thinking, and he talked to me about the lymphatic system. He introduced me, into Weston Price's stuff back in 1980, fermented foods and all that kind of understanding of the lymphatic system. And he talked about the lymph as sand between a bag of oranges. And he said there were oranges in a bag, and think of the oranges as cells and sand in between all the cells. If you take that bag and dip it in water, hydrate, all of a sudden everything is cleaned out. And that's the lymphatic system. And then I I started studying Ayurveda around that same time. And the number one dhatu tissue in the body we treat in Ayurveda is the rasa dhatu, which is the lymph that starts inside your intestinal tract based on the quality of your digestion. And if that lymph is congested, you don't make blood or muscle or fat or bone or nerve or reproductive tissue. You don't make any of that. You just become sort of compromised, and it sets that whole thing up. So that was sort of like the first, whoa, we're talking about lymph again. And that's what I think one of the things that I write a lot about is really talking about. Even when I first came back from India in 1986, I met Deepak Chopra in India. He was opening up a new center. I came back to run it for him. And I was training medical doctors, and I was talking about lymph, and they're like, wait, how do you know so much about the lymph? All we know about the lymph is people get cancer, we just take it out. And to this day, there's still really no new information about the lymph in medical practice. But in the journals, there's volumes, literally volumes of information and science written about about lymph in the journals, but that can take 10 to 25 years to reach medical practice or never. And I'm going like, wait, Ayurveda was like thousands of years old. They talked about lymph and had strategies for lymph, strategies for cleaning out your brain lymphs and all kinds of lymphs in your whole body. And now we have the science to prove it. So that's what I really do at lifespot.com is we take ancient medical wisdom and modern science and put them together and go like, whoa, we don't have to wait 25 years for this stuff to reach medical practice. We've got time-tested wisdom of practice that they did. We have the science to prove it. Let's write about it. I use it in my practice with my patients to clinically prove it, and then I write about it. And it's all that knowledge is out for free. People love it because it's free, and it's like you know, like science alone can prove whatever it wants. Coffee's good, coffee's bad. You don't really know in science what's really real. But if you have time-tested wisdom and science, I think we should at least look at that. And that's what I provide to folks at LifeSpa, is just that they can actually go, wow, that makes sense. There's science and wisdom. Let's see how that might work.
Yeah, when I spoke at the microbiome medicine conference, I spoke only about Ayurveda and how it had all this wisdom that we can apply today. And one of the things they did was detox protocols like panchakarma. Can you tell me your experience? You ran a panchakarma center for a long time, right?
Yeah, 26 years I administered panchakarma, and then kind of decided to do more writing and research and kind of do that, because panchakarma is surely a labor of love. It's you know, one-on-one with patients and guiding them through not just the physical detox, but it's really a transformational experience to free them on an emotional level. And we all sort of know that it's this crazy mind of ours that probably does the most damage to our health on every level. And if we could kind of get this thing on straight, it would be a lot better. So Ayurveda was all about like, yeah, we're going to do panchakarma, which is to kind of calm your whole nervous system down, detoxify, rebuild, and rejuvenate you, and create a level of heightened self-awareness so you can then finally see more clearly the truth and the non-truth. Old protective patterns of behavior you may have created as a young child that worked great, that served you great as a child, but you're still projecting those on the screen today as an adult, and they're not serving you any longer. So Ayurveda was all about like, how do we get clear to become more self-aware, to start taking action to free ourselves from old patterns of behavior and let the very delicate petals of our personal self out. Let ourselves be more open to being more vulnerable, more delicate, more loving, more giving, kinder, gentler, and more powerful. But coming from not a need to get approval from you or my mom or my dad or appreciation or get satisfied from the outside world, but to truly feel safe enough, courageous enough to let who I truly am out and find the joy in life from doing me, as opposed to engaging in behavior that manipulates my environment to like me, as opposed to me just doing me with no regard for getting anything in return. And that's what Ayurveda is. That's what panchakarma is. People think panchakarma is detox. It's not. It's a transformational experience where you can pull back the bow, access who you are, and let that arrow fly, letting who you are back out into the world. And we don't allow ourselves to do that. We're hardwired not to do that as young children, because kids are wired to want the approval of mom and dad. And if we didn't get the approval of mom and dad, we would have just wandered in the jungle and got eaten by lions, and there'd be no people here probably, you know? But we want that approval from mom and dad as part of our survival mechanism. But then there were these things called rites of passage that don't exist anymore, where kids were then forced to not need mom and dad's approval and just kind of, you know, really march into the world and do them without the need of approval anymore, really step into adulthood. We don't really do that anymore. We've actually created a culture where we just go into adulthood wanting more stimulation, more feedback, more likes, more shopping, more stuff from the outside world to feed me. And we end up never experiencing who we truly are in life. And Ayurveda was like, that's the whole point of Ayurveda. Veda means truth. Ayur is life. Ayurveda is the truth of your life, a science to deliver the truth of who you are into your life. That's what it's about. That's what Panchakarma is about. But everybody just does Panchakarma as a detox, and I don't think they get it. It's just been boiled down and filtered down and simplified into Ayurvedic detox. And for me, it was never that. It was transformational, experiential change for folks to really dive into this, this deep state of self-awareness and rejuvenation and digestive reset and all that. But truly, the end game was change this crazy mind.
Yes, that is so beautiful, because Ayurveda is the whole package. It's the mind, body, spirit, medicine. And so when you work with clients, do you also kind of overlay some of those Ayurvedic principles like pranayama and, yoga? I saw it in your book, like lots of asanas. Do you teach people like individual pranayamas or mantra or things like that?
Absolutely. I think, what's really cool about Ayurveda is every tool in Ayurveda, whether it be yoga, breathing, meditation, lifestyle, exercise, diet, routine, every one of those, if you look at them really from a Vedic lens, you see that they're really trying to enhance self-awareness, to give you tools to still the mind so you can drop into the calm center and function from that place. And that we call in Ayurveda sattva, that ability to feel safe and comfortable in a sattvic way of life and not feel the need to overstimulate yourself. So all of them, I've written articles about yoga, breathing, meditation, and all the science behind them, and I use all those tools for my patients. But in practice, you have to sort of not overwhelm. I learned that a long time ago when I was first in practice. We all just give a million things to your patients, and they were like, oh my God, he's right, but I can't, and then they come back 20 years later and they go, I came to you like 20 years ago and everything you said made sense, but I just couldn't do it. And now I'm ready for you. I'm going, okay, well, I really screwed up, obviously, because I should have figured out how to give you just the one or two simple things that you can employ in your life, move the needle in a way where you really do feel that you've made progress, and then make that a journey that you're on for the rest of your life. And so I think I'm better at it now after all these years, figuring out, how to deliver, the most powerful intervention without overwhelming them. But yeah, all those tools apply for sure.
Yes, it's beautiful. And, I see with my clients this whole concept of orthorexia, where people just don't know what to eat. They get overwhelmed, and all those books that are out there. And your Eat Wheat and your 3-season diet is gorgeous. The way it lays it out, I think it's beautiful. And you have the programs. What other offerings do you have? Are you doing some lectures, or people can come see you in the clinic?
Yeah, I'm still in practice. I don't see as many patients as I used to. I do a podcast with somebody, hopefully way smarter than me, every month, sometimes more than that. And I try to bring in knowledge that, so that can tie new aspects of ancient wisdom and modern science together. And like we brought in a melatonin researcher, which was all about circadian medicine, and we talked about water and so many really cool I did podcasts on veganism and carnivorous eating, and really trying to, open up the door to having that debate of science and ancient wisdom. And even Perlmutter, we did 2 debates with him, and we were on total polar opposites. And after our second debate, we were really, very much in line. So it's been a beautiful journey to be willing to have those discussions, not speaking to the choir only, but actually saying, hey, look, let's have that hard discussion. I don't agree with you. Here's what I think. What do you think? And then put all the science on the table and see if we can make some sense out of it. Because, if you go on the web, you listen to podcasts, everybody interviews, the paleo people interview paleo people, and the vegans interview vegans. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't, then you go to another podcast and you get totally convinced I should be a vegan. Then you go to a paleo podcast and you become totally convinced you should be paleo. But you really need someone to say, let's talk about the differences. And, And I tried that. I did a podcast with John McDougall, the big vegan expert, and that didn't go well. He didn't want to hear anything to do with science, but that's what you got to do. Sometimes it doesn't go well, and sometimes with Perlmutter it went great. And him and I have become very good friends as a result of exploring our differences. So I think that's the important piece of the puzzle, is to not just speak to your own group. We need to open it up. It's like the microbiome. The microbiome has these little biofilms. They all stay together and they lock themselves in and they do bad things. But we really want not nationalism in our gut. We want globalism. We want everybody to be accepted as who they are. That's what the planet needs. And of course, that's when our gut thrives, is when we don't have biofilms, where these little pockets of colonies of bad bugs doing bad things in secret. We want them to, interact and integrate with the whole, because the whole is much better and greater than the sum of the parts, and that goes with everything, really. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually feel that microbiome medicine is the future of medicine, but it's also where it's going to bridge ancestral medicine like Ayurveda with modern, because we've been treating in Ayurveda this invisible life force for so long, and now we discovered it's these little teeny invisible microbes, right? And so,
well, it might be more than that. I think microbiome is a step in the right direction, because we now, I've been writing some articles on quantum physics, and now there's these things called biophotons, which are particles of light, and they actually are both particle and wave form. That's what a photon is. It's a wave of light and particles of light at the same time. So when you look at the Ayurvedic understanding of that, Ayurveda was all about that the unified fields that quantum physics have described are waveforms that can become particles as they manifest into structure. And Ayurveda would say that when that field becomes physiology, and the physiology forgets that it's part of that field, that's the fundamental cause of all imbalance or disease. And these biophotons function right at the junction point between consciousness and matter, or field and physiology. And if you could put your attention at that junction point, you then have the ability to restore the memory of pure consciousness field with physiology. Every Vedic therapy is specifically designed to bring your attention to that biophoton junction field. And now we have science to show that our DNA emits biophotons, either coherent ones or incoherent ones. And if you release coherent ones in like a meditation, which has been proven, that you create coherent biophotons, which are able to be affected by intention. So you could literally emit biophotons, which are information-carrying molecules in your body that leave your body and take that information into the world, to the people next to you or the people across the planet. This is not just crazy talk. This is hard science. They took a monkey and they radiated it, and they stuck a healthy monkey into the cage. With less than 48 hours, the healthy monkey had more radiation damage than the actual monkey that was radiated. And they measured the mechanism of that, and it was biophotons, these particles of light that are now known to carry information, and they're affected by intention. And then all of a sudden, that explains potentially how prayer works, how distance healing works, how these things that aren't 100% across the board every single time. But there's plenty of good studies on the therapy, the benefit, and the reality of prayer as medicine. So we're opening doors in science that are even more subtle than the microbiome. And the microbiome is affected by intention as well. So if you so they're carrying that emotional charge and horizontally transferring that genetic information, even from emotional charges or toxicity in the environment, to our genetic code to help ensure that we are protected from toxic environments coming down the pike, because the bugs in the environment become our food, they become our gut bugs, they transfer that genetic mutations to our genetic material, so we're protected from future problems. Because the bugs, they lose us, they're screwed, right? So this whole thing is based on these microbes upregulating information to us to evolve us. And then we are conscious beings, and we tap into, which quantum physics says is the field of consciousness. And our antenna can tap into that, both downloading consciousness, which they talk about. This is a little bit crazy, but they talk about the unified fields that some call consciousness. They know for a fact that the unified field is evolving, that the universe is evolving, and it evolves based on information that we upload and we download from that field of consciousness. So in the same way that the bugs are uploading information about the environment to keep us healthy, we are uploading information into the field of the universal consciousness, which is not crazy. There's hard science. I've written about this. I've cited the science behind it. I know it sounds crazy, but there's science to back it up, that we are upregulating into the evolving universe, say fields of consciousness, and that field is evolving, and we upload and download information to and from that field. So we have this relationship from the microcosm of the most subtle things in our environment to the macrocosm, to the most global, and we're all just uploading and downloading information to help the whole thing evolve. And sometimes I wonder if we're devolving a little bit, but I think there's just a little mud in the water lately that's going to hopefully get cleared up. But it's a beautiful understanding, and that Ayurveda had that sort of, in a way, maps to me. It's when I would look at, the more I study Ayurveda, the more I go to see the science, and I go, wow, the scientists don't even know that they're proving Vedic science. They have no idea. And that's what I like to do, is connect those dots, which is it's a hell of a job. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, that's my thing too. That's my passion. And so being a visionary, being a researcher and a clinician, what is your vision of where medicine is going now? Like with all this that you're doing?
Well, there was a study done and I forget the numbers, but it was a study on if medicine would actually fund health instead of funding disease, that everything would change. And the problem is that we fund disease because it's financially viable to do that, and you can get a pill and all that kind of stuff. But the research was, it was billions of dollars would be saved if we would just fund how to keep people healthy. And that would challenge a few things, like the whole food industry would go, it's, the high cost of cheap food, a dear friend of mine said, and it's a really high cost because it's killing us.
Yes.
But I would think that would be what would happen in medicine, is that we're beginning to see shifts in that. But there's major economic influences here that don't really want that to happen.
Yes. Oh, this has been so amazing. Thank you, Dr. John. And so I usually end my interviews with just 3 questions, just to kind of bring it around. And it's just to be fun because, this is very heavy information. It can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'd like to go back. I like to be able to go back in time.
Ooh, time traveler.
Yeah. Not that, if I could, I'd like to go back and check out a few things. Like, I'd like to check out, Jesus's life and find out what really happened there. I think that would be really cool. But I think religion screwed up a lot of things in the world. More people have died because of religion than any other thing, really. And I think that somehow loving people and caring for others has been secondary to the need of the organization. And so I'd love to know what happened then. So that would be my super. I'd go to the future. Hopefully that would be good news. Go in the past, see what we did wrong and how we could right the wrong from here. That information would be pretty cool.
Oh, that is so awesome. I love that. No one has ever chose that one. That's an awesome one. And so my second question is, if you could transform anything in global health, human or planetary, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think, like I said a minute ago, I think really in global health, it would be just completely changing the focus on how to be healthy versus how to put out the fire. We just treat symptoms, and this is what, the whole as we started, the whole gluten thing is just, I learned that when I was first in practice in 1980, like, people off a wheat, they feel better. get them off of dairy, they feel better. But then 6 months later, they're back. You put them on a probiotic, they feel better. Put them on a digestive enzyme, they feel better. Take them off of that, or 6 months later, even with it, they're still not better. We've just done symptomatic relief. So I've sort of dedicated and that's where I was so fascinated with Ayurveda, because it really dials down deep into understanding the cause and treating the individual, and really inspiring health, as opposed to, trying to, reverse or put the fire out around a disease. So yeah, that would be my thing, is to just, treat health, focus on health, not disease.
Yeah, and I feel as part of that is really educating people on Ayurveda, because it is such an amazing medicine, right? It's
Yeah.
the most complete medicine that I know.
Yeah, it's just founded on the right thing. It's founded on, how do we, live a life to help us evolve the fastest. So when you think about a sattvic, giving, loving, caring lifestyle, we know what that does to the microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
If you live a rajasic, tamasic lifestyle, it destroys your microbiome. So
Mm-hmm.
they figured out a lifestyle that puts us on the highest track of health, longevity, and evolution to reach our full evolutionary potential. I still boggles my mind how they knew all they knew and how much science kind of backs them up. It's just crazy.
No, it's gorgeous. And so the final question is, if you could gift the listener with one bit of advice to support them in their health journey, what would that be?
Pull back the bow.
Ah.
It means that we are so infatuated by the outside world, outer space, and it's intriguing. There's technology, there's a lot out there that's pretty, gets us stimulated, but there's more. It was an old Deepak Chopra quote that I told my kids recently. I said, he would say that inner space inside of us is proportionally as void as outer space. So we have more space on the inside, but we're so fascinated by this outer space. And I think that this pendulum of our world going out has gone a little bit nuts. I'm hoping that the pendulum will start to shift in. I've written a lot of articles about what's called Dhanurveda, the Veda of the bow, where you pull back the bow, establish being, and then perform action. That you start to learn how to function from that place of deep composure and calm. But we don't want to become too still, because we feel vulnerable in that silence. So we wall it off and we get stimulated for our satisfaction. But Ayurveda was all about keep pulling us into the eye of the storm. And the bigger the eye, the bigger the calm, the bigger and more supported your stillness, the more powerful the winds, the more productive you can be in your life. So that's what I really believe is teaching. Even my very first book, Body, Mind, Sport, was about breathing through your nose. We produce brainwave alpha and coherence in the brain during vigorous exercise. That to me was about one thing: teaching people how to engage in a vigorous, stressful activity from a calm place. The bigger the eye, the more powerful the winds. That's a model for life. And I've been teaching that since my very first book back in the 80s about how to function from that place, whether it be lifestyle, yoga, breathing, meditation. I want you to go downstream with the current so life is easy and you learn how to feel safe to function from that place of peace and calm. And the bigger the calm, the more enjoyable it is, and the more wins you can support, the more powerful of a change you can elicit on the planet. And hopefully if we all did that, we'd make a dent in this universe and good things would happen.
Wow. You are such a hero to me, because all that you're doing and educating people, it's really making an impact. And so how can people find you? Can you share about, your website?
Sure, yeah. So lifespa.com, LIFESPA, lifespa.com is our website. And we publish 3 articles and videos a week on my website, proving ancient Ayurvedic medical wisdom with modern science. And all that information is free. We have a ton of free ebooks where people can go deeper into like protein deficiency or losing weight or all kinds of different ebooks we have, blood sugar, different ones. And then we do a podcast once a month or more, where you can download, we can go deeper. So the ebooks are chances to go really deep into a subject. The podcasts are chances to go deep into the subject. And then we have articles and videos. We have a YouTube channel people can sign up for. We have like over 9 million YouTube views. So it's a really popular place to get the information on all the videos that we published as well. So all that information is for free. And of course, we do have a store. We have a Ayurvedic line of products that are all organic, and they're formulated based on my clinical experience over all these years of how to treat the cause versus just giving you a pill for the symptom. And you can do that with herbs too, by the way. And they're all whole herbs, whole foods, and they're all GMP, FDA certified. So we do all the proper tests so you know that they're as clean. I take a ton of them, so I give them to my family and my patients, and I make darn sure that if we're eating them, they're good and they're healthy for you. So we test them when we get them, and we test them when the finished product is done, so we know darn sure that they're as clean as we say they are.
Well, Dr. John, I've loved this interview so much. Thank you for taking time to share your knowledge. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.